Don't look now, but the Oklahoma Sooners are a legit SEC and national title contender.
You are Locked On Sooners, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma Sooners. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Sooner Nation? Welcome to Locked On Sooners, and thank you for making Locked On Sooners your first listen every single day. Shout out to all the everydayers out there tuning in and subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. He's Jay Smith of Unfair Sports. You can check him out at Unfair Sports for more college football and Oklahoma Sooners coverage. I'm John Williams. You can read my work covering the Sooners over at SoonersWire.com. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Football season is around the corner. Visit FanDuel app today and get started on your future bets now over at FanDuel. On today's show, we've got our good friend from the Locked On College Football Show on Locked On Network, Spencer McLaughlin. He's here to break down Oklahoma, the general college football feeling as we approach week 0, and also what the College Football Playoff Committee is doing, changing the rules 2 days before the season starts. Spencer, what's up, man?
My excitement level for college football is hard to put into words, and it's my job to put things into words. I'm so ready. So ready to wake up on Saturday and have meaningful football to watch and react to on the pod. It's going to be a glorious and insanely busy next 3 months.
Glad to hear that you're lost for words, because I too am, because we get football in Farmageddon overseas, so we'll definitely dive into that. But we've got to lead off on Oklahoma, of course, because this is an Oklahoma show, Locked On Sooners, and we've got to get your understanding, Spencer. You've had me on, I've heard you talk about us a little bit, but now that we're about a week away from the first game for the Sooners, what is your look and what's your thoughts on them to give your final prediction about Oklahoma?
I like where Oklahoma is at. I don't love their schedule. If they had Texas's schedule, they would be, I think, a team with a much better chance of making the college football playoff. I think the schedule is probably the top thing that winds up keeping them out. I do think they go over their win total this year. I've landed on them at 8-4. I like John Mateer. I like Jaden Ott. I've probably watched those two guys play more football than most of your audience combined, if we're being honest. Like I've seen all those guys, or all that those guys have really put on tape for the last several years. So I like that backfield. I like what Brent Venables did with the defense last year. There's still questions. I wonder about the offensive line, because that was certainly a big talking point for Oklahoma last year and a big reason why the offense sputtered the way that it did. But if that can just be a solid unit, I think you have an Oklahoma team that could go and win a Red River shootout, that could go and put its name kind of like Texas A&M last year into the SEC championship conversation, where hey, look at the path they've got. They control their own fate, and then you run into some tough teams on the back end, or coin flip games don't go your way. So I do like what Oklahoma did this offseason. I don't know that there's a transfer quarterback I like more than John Mateer that changed teams this cycle. That's partially a reflection of how weak of a transfer portal quarterback class it was compared to seasons prior. You talk about a conference I've been around for a while, the Pac-12, RIP. And, within the last several years, going into its final season of existence in the form that we knew it, you had Bo Nix was a transfer, Michael Penix was a one-time transfer, Caleb Williams was a former transfer, Cam Ward was a former transfer, Shedeur Sanders was a former transfer. You had 4 first-round quarterbacks and 5 NFL quarterbacks on the whole right there. So that's just a general point about the portal class last year, but I do think Mateer was the best guy to move around, either him or Carson Beck at Miami. But Mateer with his legs has got more upside, so I'm excited to see how the Sooners are able to make that work in the offense. And if the defense plays the same as it did last year, you keep Mateer healthy, going 7-5, I think is the minimum for the Sooners this year.
Yeah, see, I'm kind of landing on 8-4 needs to be the floor for them, for everybody to feel comfortable about the direction that the program is heading. But let's just say hypothetically, they fix the offensive line. They go in week 2, they show that this offensive line's up to the task of blocking a Michigan team that we expect to have a good defensive front. Does that change your perception at all of the Oklahoma Sooners moving forward?
A little. I mean, if the game plays out like that, yes. But if they just win the game, not necessarily. That's a game I've said all offseason and definitely feel going into the year, just over a week away. Oklahoma should win that game. That's not if the breaks don't go. No, Bryce Underwood in all likelihood is starting as a true freshman. That will be his first road game. Is he asked to do a lot in the Michigan offense? No. But Brent Venables, defensive guy, is in year 4. You have got the more experienced quarterback. You are at home. That should be an Oklahoma win. And I'm not going to give them zero credit if they do beat Michigan just because I expect them to win, because it's not an easy game. It's not a high-level Group of 5 team or anything like that. But it is a game that I think will be competitive, but that Oklahoma should win because of all the things that are in their favor there. So I think if they go and push Michigan around, that's a good sign. I don't think it'll radically shift my perception of the team just yet, because I'm further down on Michigan than most. Michigan being number 14 in the preseason this year is pretty ridiculous. I do have to be fair, since I'm on an Oklahoma podcast. Oklahoma being in the top 20 is ridiculous. Like, just on the surface, you can make the case for them being a preseason top 25 team. That's fine. But after last season, no, they shouldn't be inside the top 20. But Michigan is more overrated to me than Oklahoma is, because I have not seen Bryce Underwood play a single snap of college football. I know what his potential is. It is just that, potential. And giving someone that level of preseason respect in the rankings, I don't think is justified. But it's amazing blue helmet with an M on the side, so you get that. So, and again, Oklahoma benefits from that as well. Plenty of other SEC teams do too. Texas being well, here's the good news for Sooner fans. What is it, like 31 of the last 32 preseason number 1 teams have failed to win the national championship? So at least there is that. But yeah, I think there's a fair amount of that in the preseason AP polls, and hopefully that all gets sorted. I was ringing the bell last year saying Michigan's overrated. Why is Michigan ranked in the top 10? Texas is going to beat the crap out of them. And then Texas walked into the big house and beat the crap out of them. And I was just sitting there going, this was really easy to see coming. I don't know if you guys are surprised in Ann Arbor, but I was not surprised.
Not at all. And I was in the exact same boat because, Michigan lost a lot. Now, granted, their recruiting classes have gotten better, and I think Underwood will be solid the next time they see Texas, which will be in 2 years. Pretty exciting to see that down there in actual Texas. But Spencer, I got to ask you about this rankings. You did this earlier in the offseason. I want to know, has there been any adjustments? Now that you're hearing the rumblings and everything around fall camps and the way things have gone with a lot of these teams in the SEC, are you sticking to this, or do you think that there's an opportunity for that to be adjusted?
What do I look like, ESPN's FPI? I didn't make changes based on absolutely nothing. That was one of the more wilder things that has happened in the last few weeks that kind of flew under the radar, and some people pointed out. But ESPN's FBI, just FPI, not the Federal Bureau of Investigation, they just said that'd be cool if ESPN had their own FBI. Well, that's kind of the
They probably do, actually.
Yeah, they could. Yeah, they could. But they just said Miami and Clemson, we don't like you. Tennessee, we like you. We're going to move you up. Ole Miss, we're going to move you up. And I was sitting there going, what are we talking about here? What? You moved Tennessee up when they're starting a guy who last played a game for Appalachian State at quarterback? That's what you... Excuse me? Tennessee is one of my favorite underbets in the country this year. Their win total is still somehow 8.5. I like Josh Heupel a lot. I think they did the right thing not, keeping Nico around. But, I mean, like, that stuff was wild. So, yes, Jay, I am indeed sticking to my guns on those preseason SEC power rankings I made, because nothing has happened between now and the time that I made those, which I think was sometime around July-ish. I forget the exact date. I think it was early July. No, my thoughts have not changed on any of these teams. I actually found that I had Oklahoma higher than most. I think that stems from not knowing as much about John Mateer, and also having questions about Brent Venables, which I think are fair, but forgetting how good Oklahoma's defense was last year. And I look at the Sooners and I like him. I'm not in love with them because I want to see Mateer against a higher level competition who's playing mostly the Mountain West last season, but he also beat Washington, who was a bowl team, Texas Tech, who was a bowl team, a couple of Power 4 opponents there, and he did well, and his legs are going to be a threat no matter the level of competition. But I think that Oklahoma is in a position to be a good team, and I think if Brent Venables, I know, John, you said floor is 8-4. To me, I look at it, if he goes 7-5 but beats Texas, all is forgiven. No,
that would buy a lot of goodwill with the fans.
Because of the preseason expectation that Texas has this year, and their roster is really good. Questions on the O-line, like Oklahoma, but Texas' defense is nasty. I mean, like Colin Simmons and Anthony Hill are dudes, and Mafe, the safety, like they got guys. They got guys all over the place. Their defense is nasty, but if Oklahoma goes 8-4, 7-5 with a win over Texas, I think that's better than 7-5 or 8-4 with a loss to Texas. But I think that for the Sooners, I like where they're at. I like what they did in the offseason, so I expect them to be good.
We're going to get Spencer's big picture views on college football, who's his national title favorite, and who's a sleeper team we got to be on the lookout for coming up next here on Locked On Sooners.
August 26th is officially FanDuel Futures Day. That's going to be a crazy day. A brand new holiday for football fans who live for bold predictions and preseason hunches. So for 24 hours, FanDuel is giving you deals on NFL season predictions. So whether you're calling your MVP, eyeing a long shot division winner, or ready to crown your Super Bowl champion before week 1 even kicks off, this is your moment. So if you want to take a flyer at like an MVP, I'm telling you, the guy I'm looking at, just because, I'm a homer, looking at Baker Mayfield, man. If he puts up the numbers he put up last year, he may be able to try and dethrone a Lamar Jackson and a Josh Allen and a Patrick Mahomes, who will probably have good seasons, but he may put up numbers that will allow him to be that. Or maybe he leads the team to win the NFC. That will be awesome as well, and dethrone the Philadelphia Eagles. I don't know. But guess what? You can go on FanDuel and you can participate in that Futures Day. So visit FanDuel app today and start planning your future bets now, because because Futures Day at FanDuel is 1 day and 1 day only. FanDuel, play your game.
Once again, thanks for making Locked On Sooners your first listen every single day. Shout out to all the everydayers out there. Tune in and subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So, Spencer, got to start. Let's start with the sleeper teams. I think that'd be a little bit more fun. We'll save the favorite for here in a little bit. But if you've got a sleeper team in college football that you think can go win the national title, who is it?
This is a crazy thing to say out loud, but if you look at the generalized national college football media landscape and discourse, the correct answer here is the Alabama Crimson Tide. Now, that is a wild thing to say. It's going to be a wild thing to hear. But can you show me the level of buzz on Alabama compared to years past? Because I don't see it. They're the preseason, number 8 team in the country? That's not where they usually are. Like, somehow Bama is just quietly there. Now, I understand why. Like, Ty Simpson is one of the most important players in college football this year. So too is DJ Lagway at Florida, but for a different reason. Ty Simpson, who was a 5-star recruit once upon a time, and Alabama is hoping will be their Garrett Nussmeier, highly rated recruit. He sits for a long time. You'd think he would transfer. He didn't. Now he gets his chance to start. If he goes out and succeeds with Kalen DeBoer, who's got Ryan Grubb back, his offensive coordinator from his time at Washington and Fresno State, he's back into the fold on that coaching staff. I think that makes a difference for the offense. They've got more of a pocket passer back there. Jalen Milroe was a runner. I wondered how that would work last year. It looked like it was going to, then it didn't. Alabama's a team that, as much as a preseason top 10 team can be a sleeper for the national championship, I think is. Just because the level of discourse around Alabama, I think they're, kind of a background noise team. There have been a lot of programs that have garnered more attention this year, I think deservedly so, in many instances, whether that's, Texas with Arch Manning or Penn State in the offseason that they have had, or Clemson and what they have coming back. And, we can talk about the favorites in that national championship picture for sure. But if you want like a way sleeper that's outside the top 10, I mean, Arizona State was close to beating Texas last year. They're number 11. Can I just throw just because it's fun and it's dark horse and it's underrated? Can I get a little love for the Illinois Fighting Illini? Like,
it's right there, man. You're right there for your sleeper. We're right there. We're right there, Spencer. You know it, and you know it.
Yeah.
See, that's the thing about it, and this is the thing I want to point out, even in last segment. You have watched the two guys we brought in, and you've watched them extensively. You know what they can possibly do with a really good defense next to them. And that's why I was like, come on, Spencer. It's right there, baby.
That's why I like Oklahoma.
You know it.
That's why I like them. Like them. But Illinois got a lot coming back. That'd be a dark horse kind of pick, because frankly, picking a team to win it all that's outside the top 10, pretty tough. Pretty tough, but Arizona State and Illinois would be about as close as I could get.
That's
I mean, good one. Arizona State's a really fun team to buy into because Kenny Dillingham is just awesome. Like,
yes,
he might be.
He's supremely likable.
Yeah, he might be my favorite coach. That's not my coach out there in college football, and I think a lot of people would say the same thing just because he's very quotable and he seems to just get it a little bit.
Yeah, everything he does is the right way to go about it. He's an ASU alum that loves ASU, that's a really good coach, that is very committed to building a certain culture there at Arizona State that's clearly been implemented very quickly, and he wants to make it work there. He's not a guy who is giving you a bunch of coach speak at the mic. He is not failing to recruit. He knows the potential of the place where he is. He loves his players. He loves his job. He loves the sport, and then he's really good at it. I think everybody wishes their coach was Kenny Dillingham. You know, if you guys may or may not know this, back when Mario Cristobal left Oregon to go to Miami, the job was reportedly offered to Justin Wilcox, the head coach at Cal. Reason being, can anyone tell me the reason why that would be?
No clue.
The Wilcox family is a legacy one at the University of Oregon.
Makes sense.
So after they got burned by Taggart and then Mario leaving them, there was a notable and some pretty vocal folks in the Oregon space, former players and such, saying they needed to go out and get a man of Oregon. To which I say, I don't know, Dana Altman wasn't a man of Oregon. He's been there over a decade. Is the best coach in the history of Oregon men's basketball. So like, I don't know what, like, make a guy a man of Oregon. Make it so that he doesn't want to leave, you know? So that didn't happen for various reasons. But the reason I bring that up in the context of Kenny Dillingham is it's kind of storybook, you know? For whatever you think of Jim Harbaugh at Michigan, there was a storybook element of he played there. He's a Michigan guy. He stuck it out. He could have left several times before he won the national title, but, you know, did they go overboard? Yeah, they did. But did they win the national championship? Yes, they did. And so I think that makes Dillingham so endearing, and everybody would want their coach to be like that. To be an alum who loves it, who wants to be there, who's passionate, who's honest, who supports his players. This is a guy who will go out and tweet, wishing you all the best. Whoever adds this kid is getting a great young man when Jaden Rashada hits the portal. You know, once billed as ASU's future at quarterback, then he transfers to Georgia. Can anyone tell me the school he's at now?
Yeah, exactly. That one.
Yeah.
That one.
John looks like
it's on the tip of my tongue, but I can't quite come up with it.
I'll give you a hint. Mascot, Hornets.
Oh, God. No, really?
Yeah. He's going to be a Hornet this year at Sacramento State.
That's it, yeah.
So in the Big Sky, which is a premier FCS football conference. So
shout
anyway,
out Brennan Marion.
Yes, Brennan Marion is their head coach, and he's a stud. That could be a fun pairing. So I think that for Dillingham and applying, you know, him to every other, most schools probably look at him and go, man, I wish we had a guy like that as our head coach, or they're trying to find him right now.
No, that makes sense. So when you look at your your favorites, who do you have that should undoubtedly make it into the playoffs, especially out of the SEC?
Oh, especially out of the SEC? Well, Georgia deserves benefit of the doubt. Kirby's just got them at a certain floor. They weren't even that good by Georgia standards last year. They still won the SEC. So, and beating the same team in Texas twice, not an easy thing to do for a team that was a Final Four player in the college football playoff. So, yeah, I mean, Georgia's certainly in there. If we're just talking SEC, I expect Bama to be there. I don't expect... I think LSU gets there. I don't expect them to be there. LSU's in a really interesting situation down in Baton Rouge. Brian Kelly needs to get to the playoff probably more than any coach in college football other than Kalen DeBoer at Alabama. Those two guys, both preseason top 10 teams, they have to get to the college football playoff, or all we're going to talk about on shows like mine or others next offseason is how many wins does this guy need, or else he will be fired. Now, Kalen DeBoer would be going into year 3 and we'd be having that conversation. Kelly would be going into year, I think, 5 next season. I believe this is year 4. So the buyout consideration is sizable, but I mean, those are two teams that LSU brings in the top rate transfer portal class. Alabama recruits very well and should have a really good roster and has, a bunch of first round picks projected on it, whether it's Ryan Williams at receiver or Caden Proctor at tackle, LT Overton, like they got a bunch of guys. But I think that those two programs have to get there, or their fan bases are going to look around and go, this is a 12-team playoff, what are we doing? We used to get upset when you didn't make the 4-team playoff. How can you not make a 12-team playoff? And you know what? They're going to be right. They're going to have complete justification for feeling that way if either one fails to make the playoff, because that means it was another 9-3 season with bad losses. Because 9-3 with 3 field goal losses to playoff teams probably gets you in the SEC, especially given the committee's new guidance. But I think that for those two teams, with not just the programs and the head coaches and where they're at, but the teams they have this year, they should be able to get in. Like LSU has got one of my favorite quarterbacks in the country in Garrett Nussmeier. They bring in a top-ranked transfer portal class. Their wide receiver core is, according to reports I've read, as good as it's as good as it's ever been. Like I think if LSU misses the playoff, there will be LSU fans that want Brian Kelly fired. I don't think they'll get their wish, just like Ohio State fans wanted Ryan Day gone. Like, get him out after the Michigan game. Yeah, then he wins the national championship. So, yeah, in the SEC, we've talked about the SEC this much without mentioning South Carolina, who I really like. They are such an interesting team to me because they feel a little bit to me, not the exact same. They feel a little bit like Ole Miss last year, where you have a window, you have an opportunity to go out and get it with these guys who all might not be there next year. Dylan Stewart at the very least. I'm pretty sure. No, he might still have one more year, but they feel more like a window program than a sustained playoff contender program. South Carolina can make the playoff this year. Will they? We will find out. But I'm pretty down on Ole Miss. I am down on Tennessee. We've already talked about Oklahoma a pretty good amount, but in the SEC, those are the teams I look at and say, and then Texas too. Texas just has a way more favorable schedule. If you gave Texas Oklahoma's schedule, I'd probably talk myself into them missing the playoff.
It's going to be an interesting SEC season because it's so wide open, but I feel like that's the case for all of college football. Real quick, who's your national title pick?
I actually haven't made one yet.
Oh my God.
Interestingly enough. Now the season does officially kick off on Saturday. Yeah, I'm going to wait until before week 1 to make that revelation. But there are 3 teams off the top of my head. Really, there are 2. Penn State and Clemson are the 2 teams that I look at and I believe in very strongly. And the James Franklin discussion is completely fair. You don't have to leave it in the comments, guys. I already know what it is. I've talked to the man about it before. I did so a few weeks ago at Big Ten Media Days in Las Vegas. I know. Go back into a time machine, like grab Stewie's from Family Guy, and go back to 2022 and find me the general discourse about Jim Harbaugh at Michigan. Do you guys remember what that was? What that sounded like?
Yeah.
Why is he here?
Couldn't win
he can't win the big game. Well, he finally beat Ohio State, but he lost to TCU? Oh my gosh. What? Why in the world? He's been here for too long. All the same stuff as with James Franklin.
But we're really comparing that with James Franklin though? Like, are we really doing that?
Yeah, because Jim Harbaugh's record against his rivals at one point was like 2-7. He was losing to Ohio State a bunch, and then he was losing all the time to Michigan State because they were in a stronger place with their program back then than they are right now, though I think Jonathan Smith will make them better this year. But the whole narrative there, at least from what I came to understand, was, well, Jim Harbaugh is struggling. Is Jim Harbaugh ever going to break through? Nope. Clearly he's not going to have a problem breaking through. Make whatever you want in the Connor Stallion situation. I'm not rehashing that argument for the umpteenth time. But yeah, Penn State's team with arguably the best defense coordinator in all of football, this would be the year.
I mean, that part makes a big, big difference. It certainly did for Ohio State. We're going to talk college football playoff committee guidance got laid out on Wednesday. Good times.
Guys, you probably heard of Viagra or Cialis. Maybe you've even tried them. But if you're looking for something beyond the usual pill, it's time to meet Rougiette Ready. Rougiette Ready is a next-generation prescription treatment designed to amplify arousal in the brain and boost your blood flow. Unlike usual pills that can take 24 hours, Rougiette 3-in-1 formula dissolves under your tongue and kicks in fast, on average, 15 minutes. Effects can last up to 36 hours, so you can stay confident and in control when the moment is right. So, if the traditional options haven't worked, Rougiette might be the answer. Over 150,000 men have already made the switch. You can even read real customer reviews on their site. It helps a lot of people feel more confident and present in the moment. So head over to Rougiette.com/LockedOnCollege and use code LockedOnCollege to get 15% off today. That's RUGIET.com/LockedOnCollege and use promo code LockedOnCollege for 15% off. Individual results may vary with prescription treatment. Compounded drugs are permitted to be prescribed under federal law but are not FDA approved and do not undergo FDA safety, effectiveness, or manufacturing review. Please visit the Rougiette website for full safety information.
All right, we have the college football season starting in just a few days as we're recording this. And the college football playoff committee decides, hey, you know what? We're going to take into account strength of schedule, strength of victory, and a whole host of things as they determine the college football playoff here in December. Spencer, what did you make of the guidance that they released?
Well, I read it, and if you see the release that's going around on Twitter, make sure you read the third paragraph very, very carefully. For those who missed it, let me just pull it up real quick so I can read it for you word for word. And the words go like this, quote, changes for the upcoming season include enhancements to the tools that the selection committee uses to assess schedule strength and how teams perform against their schedule. The current schedule strength metric has been adjusted to apply greater weight to games against strong opponents. An additional metric, record strength, has been added to the selection committee's analysis to go beyond a team's schedule strength to assess how a team performed against that schedule. This metric rewards teams defeating high-quality opponents while minimizing the penalty for losing to such a team. Conversely, these changes will provide minimal reward for defeating a lower-quality opponent while imposing a greater penalty for losing to such a team. Anybody else read that and hear the Indiana SMU reaction rule? Because that's what I heard.
Yep.
That's how it came off to me.
In particular, I love it simply because Indiana made a big point of, hey, you know what? We're going to schedule super easy non-conference because that's our easiest path to the playoff, and then backfire.
Completely.
Yeah, I wonder if those two things are directly related. I hadn't thought about that till now, honestly, even though I talked about Indiana the other day on my show, and I've ripped them up and down several times. I was the one that actually asked Curt Cignetti the question about, canceling the Virginia series, and then all of a sudden he was talking about the SEC scheduling model, and I was like, well, that wasn't where I was intending for you to go, but hey, this is fun. So
thanks for that.
Content's king. So, the Indiana situation is one that I really don't care for. It is not good for the sport, is not helpful, and it is emblematic of why teams shouldn't control their non-conference scheduling slates, and we should just adopt the formula that I came up with. But anyway, no one ever listens to me, at least not the power brokers. Some people listen to my show, or else I wouldn't get paid. Yeah, one day perhaps. But I read that as something that, frankly, I agree with. If you go and lose to a really good team, like let's say Oklahoma goes to Red River and loses by a field goal. I do agree with what this piece of literature says, which is you're not going to be severely punished for that. Well, yeah, I don't think you should be. But then the other component of, well, we're going to punish you a lot for not having good losses, and we're not going to, do as much when you beat those teams. I'm like, well, now you're taking the regular season, which I hold dear, and you're saying, the results matter, but like the results matter to an extent, and you're doing that. You're doing that both ways. A team can't control its conference schedule. So Indiana last year rolls through everyone. Okay, remember they didn't just win 11 games. They were beating the living crap out of every team they played, the way a playoff caliber team would. And then they played Ohio State on the road. It was competitive. Then the Buckeyes pulled away a little at the end. I think there was a touchdown where Ryan Day ran up the score and people were saying he's insecure and all that, like whatever. But I watched that game and thought, okay, Ohio State's better, but this is not, TCU against Georgia from a few years ago.
No.
And so I saw that schedule play out, and I thought, yeah, Indiana should be in. I would like to see Indiana in the playoff because they did win those games, and I do think that those results should matter. Whereas, no, I didn't think that 9-3 SEC teams should have gotten in just because they had well, look at this win and look at this quality loss over here. Well, based on the committee's own words, though, perhaps those teams wouldn't have had as much of an argument because they're saying, well, you're going to get punished for losing to an inferior team. Well, Ole Miss wouldn't be in because they lost to Kentucky, who stinks. Yeah. And then Ole Miss beat South Carolina soundly, which would have eliminated South Carolina. And then Alabama, of course, had the loss to Oklahoma, who wasn't that great last year, and Vanderbilt. Like, those were both bowl teams, but that was it. So, yeah, I don't I find it curious that this comes out right before the season starts. Like, that seems a little like, were you trying to just slide that under the rug and hope we didn't notice, or what exactly are we talking about here? But
yeah, I think that's kind of the point, was to throw that out there right before the season started, and hopefully nobody pays attention to it because it's almost your Friday news dump, huh?
It felt like a deadline thing too. Like, oh, the season starts, we got to put something together.
Yeah, we got to put something out there. Yeah,
we can't announce this in September or October. Like, we got to do something now. But anyway.
Yeah, but why didn't you announce it? Why didn't you announce it in May or April?
Because these committees are terrible.
Yeah,
I'm actually more pro committee than most, because when it comes to the playoff, I think they've actually gotten it right over and over again. But now I'm interested to see how they're going to respond with this new guidance, or if it really changes anything.
And I didn't mind Indiana making the playoff. I do mind them getting rid of a Virginia series against a Virginia team that's not a football team. Like, that is not a football program that anybody should be concerned about.
They've made the ACC title game before. They can be. They can be okay. I'm against it for the premise of, think about this. What if 2 years ago you scheduled a home and home with Indiana? How would that, like Oklahoma, if you scheduled a home and home with Indiana 2 years ago, how would that be seen? You're adding a cupcake win. Well, welcome to the transfer portal era, and teams can change really,
coaches.
really quickly. So it's the premise of taking a power four and booting them off that I'm against.
Yeah, same. I'm the exact same feeling on that too. And when I read the guidance as well, that's what I felt like it was. Oh, you're trying to find a way to punish, quote unquote, punish some of these schools that are trying to soften up their schedule outside of their conference. In which the question's going to now be asked: what determines if a schedule's tough? So like, for example, my question for you, Spencer, is because of this new guidance, do you think it's an easier path for, say, an Oklahoma, a Florida, maybe a Vanderbilt wins 9 games? Can they find their way into the playoff, or even Alabama?
Depending on the result of the game, I think that there's the potential for that answer to be yes. But I need to first see how do they respond to different types. Not every loss is created equal. Texas went on to Michigan's home field last year and beat the crap out of them. It was like 20, I think it was like 21-3. That I don't remember. Like it was not close very quickly. And you could tell, oh, Texas is just a significantly better team. If Michigan last year had gone 9-3 with, the 14-point loss they had or whatever it was to Oregon because they added a late touchdown. So let's say they lost that game by 14. If they lost to Texas by 3 and then they lost another, like to Illinois, let's say, who was a good team, if they lost that game by 7-10, do they basically just forgive the 3-point loss and say, oh, well, it was tight. They could have won, but they didn't. But I want to see how that plays out because here's the other thing. BYU got next to nil consideration as an at-large team last year. They were 10-2 in the regular season with a road win against a playoff team. They went to SMU and won by 3 points. And also, they obviously didn't get as much of a reward. Is that because it was only by 3 points or because it was Big 12 ACC and you didn't have big expectations for either one going into the year? That whenever people say preseason polls don't matter, of course they matter. They matter. You might not want them to matter, but of course they matter.
They shouldn't, but yes, they do.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. Like, I think it's one of those things that we're not really going to know how it plays out until we see the case study actually present itself. Because, if you looked at South Carolina and say maybe they don't lose to Ole Miss, but they lose to a top 10 team on their schedule, then maybe they're getting a little bit more consideration. They're getting a benefit of a doubt. Alabama probably was never going to have a chance because of their 2 losses to Oklahoma and Vandy. Ole Miss, if their loss was not to Kentucky but to somebody else, then maybe they get a better shot at it. I think it's going to be a year by year.
I still just don't like it because it makes the regular season matter potentially less, and that outcomes are more about what your seeding's going to be rather than whether you make the playoff. That's why I've always objected to playoff expansion, and why I am my ears are more than a little peeled to see how this is all going to unfold.
Yeah, I'm at that point where I'm like, no more expansion. I think 12 might be too many. Because we're arguing about teams 13, 14, 15, and 16. We certainly don't need to be arguing about teams 25, 26, 27, and 28.
Oh, that's what will happen.
Big 10.
We'll get to 24.
We'll get to Big 10.
We'll get to, oh, God, yeah. Yeah, the Big Ten's messaging is bad.
Get out of here with that.
So
I think they did it on purpose. They put that out there just to see what the response would be. And, of course, the response is bad.
No, I think they put it out there to normalize a 16-team playoff, which...
Yeah. Well, that too.
And here's the thing. I don't think Yormark, I don't think Sankey, I don't think the ACC commish, I don't necessarily think they're buying it. Like, I don't know that anybody...
What I hope is that
12.
I hope there's so much disagreement that they just have to stay put at 12.
Yeah.
That's my big hope. Yeah.
And I think that's what's going to happen. Ultimately, yes, you could sell more, playoff dollar, revenue to the networks. You can get more money from them for these, but the SEC coaches don't want to go to 9. The SEC ADs don't want to go to 9 conference games, and that's what the Big Ten's kind of holding the line on, and I just don't see that happening.
Well, then let's just stay at 12. I'm good. 12. If we never expand the playoff ever again in the history of the sport, I'm good.
With the 24 team talk, I'm ready to go back to 1995. Where
give me the BCS.
Yeah, just let the AP.
I would go to the BCS. I would have gone to the BCS before I expanded to a 12-team playoff.
Yeah. All right. Well, this has been a lot of fun. Y'all got to go check out Locked On College Football with our guy Spencer McLaughlin, covering all of college football every single day here on the Locked On Podcast Network, especially like all of the constant realignment stuff that's happening. Like not just the big schools, the big conferences. He's covering Group of Five stuff that you're not going to get necessarily everywhere else. So you got to go check out Locked On College Football, covering all the top stories throughout the season, off season, all of it. Follow Spencer at S. McLaughlin CFB on social media. And again, download that show wherever you get your podcast. Follow Jay at Unfair Sports. Go check out his channel, Unfair Sports, on YouTube. You can read my work covering the Sooners over at SoonersWire.com. The show is at Locked On Sooners on all of your favorite social media platforms. But until next time, for Spencer, Jay, and myself, John, we'll talk to you next time. Boomer.
Sooner.
And whatever they say in Oregon.
Go Ducks.